Hidam Guru Ratna Mandala Gani Radayami Chodan Zaji Jonam La Janju Badu Dani Jazuji Nagi Chenye Jibe Zonam Ji Rola Benji Zonje Jubar Yo Chodan Zaji Jonam La Janju Badu Dani Jazuji Nagi Chenye Jibe Zonam Ji La Benji Zanje Rubar Yo Sharan Zaji Janam La Yanjo Badu Dai Yazuji Nagi Junye Jibe Zonam Ji Rola Benji Zanje Rubar Yo.
Dangasulari was the laundry or the Marbeta. Chungu did the church which was on the Shebashas, Chibi Chungu the Tumu Landi, the Tumu Land, Chibi Chimbi Lang. What the Sukna Lord the range take words, Marva. That is Saji Jujina, that Saji Juji, but the Juniba. What Chusung the Ballet the Marva? Juji but the Marbeta, Juji but the Chibi. Chungu da tumu la da ri da tumu jebi chimi la da yabi jong so na den han ju u res jermi chi han ju gi na gu ba chi bu wa res so na de shi tu nyu du gres so na de shi tu nyu du ba yin za an san ju bu ji gres on de mar ba ju ji ba de mere ju ni ba la da ne ang han ju ya ge han nya le je de ba me ba yin na an ba jin ti be la jang ba nya le je de gres Chebutum Chumuda Tungu Lantan, Rida Tungu Lanta, Chebi Lanta, Jeshi Jeba, Nyanajena, Digaris, what the Marbe. That Jusumba Tang Halan, Jubaina, what the Milad Marbe. Tangazulanich and Pusakus, the Tetema Mudua, good page and a Guchu Kojero. The Ichikus.
Okay, so Guchu.
Okay,
so we're on page 94 in the Tibetan text, and we're on page 137 in the English. So at the beginning of Atisha's Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, it's stated that understand that there are persons of three capacities, small, middling, and great. I shall write clearly identifying their characteristics. So in the beginning of the text, we find this summary, and these three capacities are stages that students are led through. And we're currently in the section of the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment that deals with the reason or the purpose for leading students through the stages of three capacities or persons of three capacities. So in that particular section where we find the reason or purpose for bringing students through these stages, there are 14 points that are made. And these 14 points show how these are stages or stairways to each other, these three capacities, small, medium, and great. These pathways for small, medium, and great. So we've been dealing with the 11th, 12th, and 13th point. The 11th point is that among the 14, that once you've practiced the teaching shared in common with beings of small and medium capacity and the perfection vehicle or ordinary pathway teachings of the great vehicle or the teachings for beings of great capacity, once one has a very firm familiarization with those practices and pathways, one should then enter the secret vehicle or the mantric vehicle. Because of the fact that in mantra or in tantra, one quickly achieves or accumulates the collection of exalted wisdom and merit. And it's for that reason that the emphasis here is on practicing Tantra, because of how quickly or rapidly one can achieve Buddhahood, because the collections are achieved more quickly. So this is the 11th point. The 12th point that is made is if you have no affinity for the tantric vehicle or the mantric vehicle, because of different accumulations from previous lives or predispositions from previous lives, then one should engage in a very extensive practice and study of the perfection vehicle. So this is the 12th point that's made. And then the 13th point that's made is how one enters the tantric path, what the practice of Tantra actually is for that person who has engaged in those practices, what that tantric path actually is. So just a translator's note, last week I had some trouble with the translation, and I hope to bring more information this week to the translation so there's more clarity in Rinpoche's teaching. So again, I just want to apologize that last week the fault was just of the translator, and that the teacher's words were completely pure. And in going back and looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's texts and Panchen Sonon Drapa's texts, it's exactly congruent with what was taught last week that I could not translate. So I just want to say that about the purity of the Lama and the impurity of the translator. So we are currently on page 137. And we will begin right in that section, and on page 94, I forgot what I said, 94 in the Tibetan, Sangha La, okay.
Sangha La Juna Tibetan. What in my Ithaca rules, Yajangul rules in the Marba.
Tu Chena.
Jupari Tibetan, Rebasanga to Tibas, Chibi Chungu the Tumulan, Rita Tumulan, Chibi Lante, and then Halang Juris, Marba. So there
are two vehicles. We have the causal vehicle, causal perfection vehicle, and then the resultant vehicle, which is the tantric vehicle, or the tantric path is the result. So it's in dependence upon the causal vehicle, which are the teachings shared in common with beings of small and medium capacity, and the teachings for great beings of great capacity, that the resultant vehicle or the resultant path of Tantra emerges.
Saturday Ketul metal meta mess at the iris. Does a two between this marva. My EJ.
Bless you.
That Juba. Juba said then
protect.
Jeremy President than water. Nasung doing the Queen Jibali Juba. Jubas. Refugees at marva for the mentor. Man and then Nasunda doing Kudu Jibali Juba in some mentors.
Less so.
Don't know what the degrees.
Less so. So the word mantra, if we look at the etymology of the word mantra, the word ma stands for mind and tra for protection. And if we look at the explanations that Lama Tsongkhapa gives about what one is protected from the fear of the suffering of the lower realms and protected from the fear of the suffering of cyclic existence. So this is what one is protected from. So ma is mind, cha, protection, and one is protected from those suffering, the fear of those sufferings.
What did you tell us what the budget and how the rules and Russian Marba?
So
Kalan Junanes, Shetiba Tanji, Dan Chabra Do. Sangan and Nature Sombe, Shenye Tunjungali Chabatu Haba, she Tene be Jesun down the shatters. Tang Halakit Juba Ina Tene Hal Juba Ina Tene Tibatanji down Chabatung, Hal Shugina, and Penchavi Yoris, Hanes on yours, Sumba Najin Jugures, Tashin Tenjude, Hal Chabatu Papa Jugures, Talandrel the Marve. Get this song I should not, does a living on good, near good is just Sujita, Kadula Tanji, Lama Tamajas. That Lama nearby the Kotan Kaji Druba, or the Tenegutune, Shenye to passing that Mandraj Google is, saying, but Shenye to le chabat baba ngata pashin tibi ko marba
Less so.
wordal chabat baba ju
Less so.
ko se awodin bare
Less so. In the text here, it says, it is taught in all the vehicles in general, and in the mantra vehicle in particular, that reliance on the teacher is very crucial. Consequently, once you enter the mantra path, you should follow the mantra explanations and practice a method of relying on the teacher that is even more specialized than what I have explained before. So previously, there have been the explanations of reliance upon the spiritual friend according to the sutra vehicle or the perfection vehicle. And in the mantric vehicle, the reliance upon the teacher is slightly different. And in Atisha's Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, we find a quote that says, "Then, to receive the preceptor initiation, you must please an excellent spiritual teacher through service, valuable gifts, and the like, as well as through obedience." So here, this defines how one should behave towards one's spiritual teacher and how one should rely on and care for one's teacher. And we find just slight difference in these advices than we find in the sutra tradition. There's a more specialized relationship with the spiritual friend. So here it says the method of relying on, it says you should, I'm sorry, there's a quote Rinpoche went back to, it is taught in all vehicles and in general, the mantra vehicle in particular, reliance upon the teacher is very crucial. It says, but there's a practice, a method of relying on the teacher that's even more specialized than what I have explained before. What I have explained before is according to the sutra, the perfection vehicle. So what was explained before is different than, has slight difference than that of the specialized relationship one has in the tantric tradition.
Water Jesama, the net judo command and join you, one Jimmy Basines, Tanghang Jugo Oris, Nami Jugos, Henji, Castionris, Teba Jimmy Jugo, and Senji Marba, the Hang Jugo on Yitan, and then judo command Shebine, Monk Lamaji Tune, and one shooting Hang Jugo, is what the shade Marba.
So then it says, then ripen your mind with initiations that come from pure tantric sources, and observe properly at the risk of your life all the vows and pledges, etc. So here, this is speaking of taking an initiation. An initiation is the door into mantra, the door into the tantric vehicle, as going for refuge is the door into Buddhism, and a mind that aspires to enlightenment, or Mahayana mind generation, is the entrance into the Mahayana. The entrance into Tantrayana is an initiation.
Tawon the Shaju, the Shuji in the Chutan Chubu, one year Matu Maris, and then Ponga Shan and Digris,
So,
and the Nanju Judan, Nanju Jul, Dujul on to Yumare, Chutan Chubu on to Dujul on, and the Judu Comale, one, someone, she won, Shiro, she won Jimarbe, what the Judu Coman on Jiro.
So, in the four classes of, we find in the tantric vehicle, there are four classes of tantra: action tantra, performance tantra, yogic tantra, and highest yogic tantra. And in the lower classes of tantra, in the action and performance tantras, we find either the crown and water initiation, if we do it by way of 2, or by way of 5, we have crown, water, vajra, bell, and name initiation. And if we look at the yogic tantra, we have an additional wisdom teacher initiation. And if we look at highest yoga tantra, there are 4 different initiations: the vase initiation, the secret initiation, the knowledge wisdom initiation, and word initiation. So these are the 4 initiations in the highest yogic tantra tradition.
What did that and one Casa Wag Jimmy Basheneti to be dancing on number Tangela Sudu Shala Tujin Sonsa. Want to because one should because on the Shanti Semi Dumbatan, Hang Dumba Langro, Hang Dancy Dumba, what to Galo, and the Kantu to Son Matuna, Devalashana Gentelinche Gures, what is more than said.
Then the text goes on where I went into slightly, where it says, after the initiation from pure, and observe properly, at the risk of your life, all of the vows and pledges that you've received during your initiation. So this is referring to the vows of the Bodhisattva vows and the tantric vows, and then the pledges of the various commitments and pledges of the families and so forth.
추지도 송ත는 제바도 자유 동아포나 살랑도에 좀 하고 자동 하고 자유 동아데 딱 하고 자유 동아도 하고 도마요 현재 자동 용거를 하고 도마 맨날 자동 용거 말했어. 당 아주 하고 도마 쉬그래 상주 선배 도마 쉬그래 안에 등 제마 제지 도와 걸래 가볼 땐 아버지 토그랬어. 아버지 토그래. 이나도 송아 팬요 와르스. 마송나 디바 요되게. 어들지 토그래 마도. 너서 상주 선배 도마 쉬자 현재들 상주 선배 도마 토비가 봐요 말했어. 상주 선배 도마 토견들 배지 상주 선배 그랬어.
오케이.
상가게는 상사 거스 말বে. 상사 리지 부처지 비면데. 아니 상주도 상주도 만나다 보스. 最上就三百一呢，上就都没能打波斯，上就三百东巴国是跟起来说呢，俺那三个提过的从上就三百一百，上就都没能打过也被提过的，这呢上就三百名是呢，俺东巴这就有嘛的是，上就三百没把了东巴都没什么了，双别些三个上三个有了，怕是这顿三几个都有的。
So we find that in order for one to have the actual vow, one has to have received the vow. In order to have received the vow, one has to have received the bodhisattva vows. And in order to receive the bodhisattva vows, one has to have bodhicitta and already be a bodhisattva. So because it's very difficult to actually have these realizations at this time, we have a facsimile of the vow. And we have to care for it and keep it as if it's the real vow, because we are accumulating virtue and non-virtue relative to it, even though it's a facsimile of the real vow, because the real vow requires the actual receiving of the vow of tantric vow, and the receiving of then the bodhisattva vow that requires one to have bodhicitta and be a bodhisattva to receive. And we find in Asanga's bodhisattva bhumis, the bodhisattva levels where this is qualified, and it states that those who have the aspiration to enlightenment, who are bodhisattvas, can be given the bodhisattva vow or receive the bodhisattva vow. So here, the qualification of actually receiving a real bodhisattva vow is that one is a bodhisattva, and we find that in the bodhisattva bhumis. But we have to imagine that it is a real vow and care for it in that way. And we find in the chapter on mind generation in Panchen Sonandrapa's General Meaning of Perfection, where it states that the Bodhisattva Bhumis have the requirement, it shows that the requirement of the being a Bodhisattva already is necessary to receive a Bodhisattva vow. Semche, you're indicate. That's it.
하시시든 생지 가도 되도 되요. 와다드네 가서 온슈는 하 온슈들은 샤주세메 도말랭고레 하도랭고레 아니 뭐죠 하동 도와갈리 가버리스 하동 잡지 토르스 아니 대송나 배요르스 대마송나 동안 자유 동안도 요거 말 동안 최종인 그랬어. So
in the text here it speaks of you observe these vows and pledges. So in the we look at the root tantric vows, and in order to have a root tantric vow, it's necessary to have received the vows themselves, which is actually very difficult based on the fact that we have to receive the vows, receive the bodhisattva vows, etc. But we have a facsimile of that vow that we should care for. So when it speaks of not being tainted by the root infractions, one has to have the root vows to have a root infraction. But we have a facsimile of the root vows, so we need to care for it in the same way. That's
자동 주주 서야 송고레스 자동 주주 마송바 옛날 제만래야 되요아데 생준슈도 그랬지만 상주 생당 상지고 도알레 갈래 가버 차는 그랬어.
맞아.
신도 가서 제바도 자유 동안 보나 랑도 여장 주추선데 생줄 준슈네 제만라 지야 갈래 가버 지그랬어. 근데 신도 즉가외 자유 동안 막고 발라 배에서 연락 동안 나지 막고 발라 배지 고나 샤동지 타버샤데스 샤동지 우르스 안은 하고 온슈나 하고 자동 다는 그랬어 되네 동산도야 요래 이전도야 요래 안은 하고 어떤데 디바샤다 뭐지 하수는 좋아요 와 어떤 것도 샤동지 당하수 하도 정나 디바타는 말봐
So here, you can take the pledge again if you are affected by a rude infraction, but your mind will have been spoiled and it will be very difficult to give rise to good qualities. So to engage in the future in the path will be quite difficult if one's mind is spoiled by causing an infraction. So if we're looking at the bodhisattva vows, for instance, the root bodhisattva vows, there are 18, or the mantric vows. So here it's talking of being spoiled in the mind and making it difficult in the future to engage in a path. And it says, then, therefore, specifically strive never to be tainted by root infractions and not be soiled by secondary infractions. Even if you are tainted by these, purify yourself of them with confession and restraint, since vows and pledges are the foundation of the path. So here it's stating that if one transgresses any of the vows or pledges, that one should engage in an acknowledgement of those downfalls in order to purify it. But there still is a soiling of the continuum that occurs that makes the path difficult. So it says to be careful and not transgress the vows because there is still a leftover soiling if one does. That's so.
당시 들었던 랭아시 시당 수수이 당시 랭아 시기 당시 들어 배치 시루도 생사 말을 시루 시스버바시 한 온주사들래 한 도말렌사들 시루도 냐네 제고지로 랭아 시세도 어두즈면로 시 당시 랭아 파이부
Okay, thank you. Then
랭아 시 당시 들어 시루도 즈면로
Okay. Then
다 소수 당시 쪼고요. 쪼고. 알라 대신 셔방가 네 쿨쿨 들어오고도 매주 바지는 거.
맞아요.
레전 존에 여바메 더 줘봐.
나바난세.
어떤가도 말해.
전에
어때? nga 들어와. nga 땅 아술 포멍가도 포멍가데 제망아도 사제들이 대신 셔방가 차는 거 말다.
맞아.
어때 대신 셔방가도 그걸 질러나래.
Then Pomonga Joa Lagwe.
포멍가 나도 사제들이 포멍가 답이 다 차들 대신 셔바 링가 되는 거라서.
The Majumba Namshe. Majupa Nanshe. The
어떤 이제다. 포멍가 나왔다는데 대신 셔바 링가 아니로 마주바지 느까래.
Yoba May. Okay. So the five Buddha families, there are five Buddha families. There are vows and pledges that are found within the Tantra. And then there are pledges, we find pledges of the five Buddha families and individual pledges. The five Buddha families are referring to five specific Buddhas. Buddha Amoghasiddhi, Vairocana, Ratnasambhava, Amitabha, and Buddha Ashobhya. So these are the five Buddha families. And these five Buddha families have a connection to our five aggregates, because each of our impure aggregates are transformed into one among the five Buddha families. So our consciousness aggregate is transformed into the Ashobhya Buddha. Our feeling aggregate is transformed into Ratnasambhava. Our perception or naming aggregate is transformed into Amitabha. Our formation or volition aggregate is transformed into Amoghasiddhi. And our form aggregate is transformed into Vairocana. So this is how the five aggregates have connection to the five Buddha families and are transformed into them from their five impure states into their pure states, which are the Buddha families.
다 넘버 나바난제 그 당시들 조례도 조도 가르스나 그 거와 주디 주진 세계 도시 주진 안에 세계 도시 주진 예쇼 동부 주진 거와 주디 주진 세계 도시 주진 송제 안동을 상제를 저 출라 저 근을 저 장도 송 조들에도 세계 단지 돈도 안 세계 단지 돈에 나와서 산타네 안에 사실을 출라 저 근을 대바 재미적으로 그거 what the truth there 나바 단지 단지 truth
So looking at the individual families, each of the families have specific commitments or pledges, translated both ways. We're going to use pledge. So specific pledges that are associated with those families. So we'll begin with the family of Vairocana Buddha family. There are 6 specific pledges. There are the first 3, a moral discipline. The second is virtuous action motivated by bodhicitta. And then the third is serving sentient beings. So these are the first 3 pledges. And then the next 3 pledges are going for refuge to the Buddha, going for refuge to the Dharma, and going for refuge to the Sangha. And these specific refuges are specifically Mahayana refuge, for going for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha for the sake of all sentient beings. So in this specific pledge, where one is pledging refuge, it's a Mahayana or great vehicle refuge. So these are the 6 pledges of Vairocana. Less so.
도제 토지 단지 제부 송기 단지 랑하 공부 사지 단지 되네 도지 르면라 모두 군진 존에서 따와데 도지 르면지 단지 제den도 단지
So the Ashobhya family, Vajra family, Vairocana, beautiful family, Ashobhya Vajra family has 4 specific pledges. The 4 pledges are as follows: the pledge of the Vajra mind, the pledge of the bell speech, the pledge of mudra, which is one's own deity manifestation, and the pledge of the master vow offering. So these are the 4 pledges of Buddha Ashobhya, the Vajra family.
다 도진 타다 제변이 싫어 도지 타성 들다 가서 그래 하고 말이 정말로 되네 제부 싫어 돈이 좀 싫어 주는구나 랑 하고 봐 소소 대바 마루가 산다네 안 살로 되니 안 하가고 봐이나 어떤 공부를 랑 하고 봐 사지 당시 도지 제부 사자 되는 도지르면 모두 군전에서 다 제들은 뭐지 뭐지 당시지
Rinpoche, the shaja 부모, 그래?
샤자는 레지 샤자당 공비 샤자서 뭐여로 다든데 이제 범을 거예요 말이다.
알레.
도지 토지 당시. 도지 토지 당시. 다 런 하고 봐이 말 하고 봐 투말.
Okay, on got.
하게. 투모 많이 터들어. 아니 제부 송그 당시 다 돈이 공부. 하게 다시 예매데 로지 돌자 야도 그랬어. 하고 비샤네 탑 돈이 공부샤네 싫어. Okay.
So when we're looking at the Vajra mind is referring to the method, which in the method in this tantra is referring to deity yoga. So the method is the deity yoga, and the bell speech is referring to wisdom. And the wisdom here is the wisdom realizing the emptiness of that. And the way that in this mantric vehicle, one practices method and wisdom is in one instance. So method and wisdom are conjoined and are of one instance and are together, simultaneous arisal. So the wisdom of the bell is the bell of sounding the lack of true establishment, and then the wisdom, then the method of the Vajra is the actual deity yoga. So this union of the emptiness of the deity yoga then becomes the union of method and wisdom of one instance in Tantrayana. And then the mudra is the actual arisal of one's own deity. I asked Rinpoche, because in many of the texts it speaks of the mudra. This also is the mudra. This mudra is the manifestation, Rinpoche said, of the deity. And in a lot of the texts it speaks of it being specific to consort. But Rinpoche said it's not specific to consort in this case. There are many different mudras. And the fourth is the master vow offering.
다 도줄 흐면서 나와서 도줄 흐면 당고로 군주네서 다 도줄 흐면 신의 대기나 달라되는 축응으로 용거래 도문으로 용거래스 어디 도스다고 그랬어 어디 제바디로 도줄 흐면 모두 군주네서 나와서 다 소소는 하 그게 줘로 그게 그게한테 네 그게 야부대기나 달라되는 도문으로 용거래 서령와도 내매 받아서 봐 So then
the master vow offering, the master Vajra master vow offering, deals with relying well, by relying well on the teacher and making offerings, we are able to have our life extended. We are able to have the common and uncommon realizations achieved, and so forth. So here, this is through this offerings of 6 times to the Vajra master.
And then Suzuki Saatu Saatu so, and Chuba Bishabaina, and Jimbaro, something Jimbaration, something Jimbaji, and the Menjibi Jimba said that Bunaji Chundam Kenuduna, Motal Tida Chiduna, and Motor Gabaina Menjibi Jimba Marbe. Motor Tamba in Cosegro, Motor Gabaina Quinjibal Jovarova, then Najida Momsanta, Menjibi Jimba.
Chujimba.
Chujimba Dangazu, Chujiago never in a Chujin Jigura, the Chujima Marba. Dangazuchi, Canonam than the Jedule, and Chujimba is undone and Jigura. Couldn't you think you were good? Mama doesn't.
That's so. Shade and Ninji Shamba.
That's amazing, but which is Shamba Zero. Love, Marba.
That's so. So then the Ratnasambhava, the jewel family, there are 4 specific pledges associated with Ratnasambhava. The first is material generosity. So here, when we're just make simple offerings of our food or drinks, this could categorically fall under material generosity. So this is the first category. Second is giving fearlessness. So these are 4 generosities, if I haven't said it. The second is giving fearlessness. And here this refers to if we were to save a bug from water, for instance, we would be giving the fearlessness, freeing that bug from fear is a more literal way to translate it. Or if we stop our car to avoid hitting an animal, then this is the generosity of giving fearlessness or relieving the fear of that animal. Because if we just keep going and hit it, we're going to kill that animal. So this is what giving fearlessness means, the generosity of giving fearlessness. The third is the generosity of Dharma. And when we're reciting prayers out loud, we imagine that there are many different beings that are listening to these prayers as we are reciting them. And this could categorically fall under the generosity of Dharma or giving Dharma. And then the fourth category, the generosity of loving kindness, is meditation upon love for sentient beings. So this is the generosity of loving kindness. So these are the 4 types of generosity which are pledges associated with the Ratnasambhava family. And the fourth one, the loving kindness, it says meditation or repeated cultivation with loving kindness is that generosity.
What the Renju Dancy the Jimbaji the Rendo Jimbaji. What does not start on the Chuba in order to the Aboriginal was?
Lesser.
Ta yoba meji dansi tile, yoba meji dansi son rendo da. Shisha ju dan, sha shui ju, 다 주듯이 말로 자유주 쉐비주 nenju lana me juge juge yorwa shedan sayate she shayu ju shebi ju nije sawa nenju ju nenju lana me ju o de ne teba sonji dubi ana kaso chebu chungu lan ding lan chebu chimbi lan tejeng lan temeng lan o de tamal lojon je ures 샤쇼 주 로장제 우 탄시 지제 nenju lana ma bi ju니 로장제 우 탄시 니제 안에 테바 탄지 로장제 우를 송드레도 송드레시
Amitabha, the Lotus family, has three specific vows, three specific pledges. First is the pledge of the external, second is the pledge of the secret, and the third is the pledge of the three vehicles. So first pledge, dealing with the external, relates to engaging in the practice of the two lower tantras, of action tantra and performance tantra. The second pledge, the secret, deals with engaging in the practices of yogic and highest yogic tantra. And then the third, three vehicles, deals with the other vehicles of practice, the practices of the teaching shared in common with beings of small and medium capacity and great capacity, the lesser vehicle practice, the great vehicle practices. So here is the three vehicles of here is solitary realizer, bodhisattva. So, but including all of those, common with small, medium, and great in relative to the ordinary path. So here, this is specific to the teaching. And studying well the action tantra, performance tantra, yogic tantra, highest yogic tantra, studying well and listening to the teaching on the solitary realizer and bodhisattva. So here, the pledge here is the Amitabha is pronouncing the teachings that we are to study of these four tantric lineages and the three vehicles.
Tubi dansi nire, ta nire karasana, nana yoba me paji ta sanji nga yoro, nga gana ane sanji jig dansi tsama nyana je ure, jije. Ti tule shi choba, nangi choba, ane shi choba, nangi choba, ta kona ni choba sondile, kanto judu lo jan je ures. Shi choba nga su matu piya la zudu zudu, shi choba rwada. Nangi choba sana nga su nachu, 하게 네 샹가도 두즈가 신실로네 조미디아 주로 어디 나줘야 돼 말에
그래서
되네 더 권한 줘봐 돈이 공하다 말에 돈만이 산다는 돈이 공부이나 더 권한 줘봐 인저로 어디 지당 아니 이래는 거도
추바
나나네
오케이
나나네 다 더 줘봐 맞지나 사마 선지 제로 선제직 당시 사만년에 지지 대토래 시 줘봐 나기 줘봐 또 권한이 줘봐 가도 줘도 년에 지고레스 어떤 일들은도 또 돈을 주고래도 주고
the next Amoga city action family there are two specific pledges. First pledge is keeping the perfect possession of vows, and this is keeping the pledges of all of the other four families. So keeping all of those pledges. So this is the first pledge of Amoga city, and the second pledge is cultivating worship. And there are three categories of worship. There's or it could be offering, worship or offering, translated either way. There is outer worship. Or offering, inner worship or offering, and the nature offering, or natural, like immutable natural, it's something like of that nature. I'm sorry, I don't know the exact word. So there are these three types of offering. The outer offering, or worship, is referring to making offerings such as flowers and so forth. The inner offering is referring to offering our flesh in the tantric aspect. So offering some of our internal, some sort of internal offering. And the immutable nature offering is referring to offering the lack of true establishment or emptiness. So this is what the cultivating worship is referring to, outer, inner, and immutable or natural. The nature, because it's like this. It's the same word for the ignorance of the nature of reality. That word in there, so it's the nature of worship, something like that. Less so. Less so. Yobame, sum. Less so. Jugu. Less so. So in looking at the category of the pledges of the 5 Buddha families, we'll find that there are a total of 19 pledges altogether. There are 6 pledges of Vairocana, 4 pledges of Buddha Ashobhya, 4 pledges of Ratnasambhava, 3 pledges of Buddha Amitabha, and 2 pledges of Amoga City, making for a total of 19 pledges of the 5 Buddha families. So if we can understand this, it's very good. Skari. So it'd be good if in the future we now have this explanation of these pledges, and they've been received by the camera, and in the future we can write them down so we can know them. So we can write them down so we can know them.
Lama nyeme laja cheze sis barbajin sis
6th session.
On the sis kalsa.
Vegu.
Sis ngoro garba.
Ve becha inji ke yomare.
Yeah.
The dakwangi da de yomare.
Tendu lamine.
The data. The chira becha chipa.
Tendu lamine jun tedwa.
Lesser.
Lama nyeme laja cheze Lama nyeme ane ngaga lama de nyem ngaga domba yena ngaga 원슈야 그 라마들 헤메 제바이나 자유동화 용그레스 도와 메나 용아요 말하다 라마님의 담보이 맞담보.
So here, this is speaking of we're speaking of the root vows, and one must, in order to possess the root vows, one must take the actual vows, and necessity comes. There must be a preceptor to give us, or a lama to give us these actual vows. So in order to have root vows, we have to be given root vows.
다 담보도 드린도 들라 해봐 해봐시나 도줄르변라 해메시비 자유동화사 하고 동바 여바이나 안나 소소 원쇼자가 라마들레 네 카타야다 어떤 제바이나 안나 자유동화 담보도 용거레스 라마 예메스 야딘 바레 담보체.
So here in the request, there's a supplication to the Lama to receive the root vows in here. I was looking at a different section, so I apologize. I just have to find that section.
Lama
Okay, here we go. Okay, risky. So here we have the 14 root vows. And Lama Nyeme.
Lama Nyeme is Lama
Tapa.
Haga Dumba Yuna. Haga Dumba Yuna, so one shows a Lama de la Katama Yina. And the Sayu Dumba Yunga is a Tomater.
So here the necessity becomes of having the teacher to provide or give the actual 14 root vows. So without, in order to have the root infractions, one must be given the root vows by a teacher.
하자 주제시 니바들도 니바 자유 동안 니바 동바 하자 주제시 자유 동안 쇼스는 하고 동바 여바지 는 하자 주제시 자동도 간에 용거스나 동바 송지 사비 제바 강용롱알라 시진도 체두세바신 겨와시나 하자 주제시 자동사 하고 동바 여바지 는 소소 타비 동바 상생의 동바 는 하고 동바들 하자도 줄래 네 시진도 겨와시나 네 라자 주제시 비자 돈이 받으레스
네 수수타비
동바 송수도 라바 송스나 라바 동바 송스나 소소타비 동바 상생의 동바 하고 동바 송도 말베 하고 동바 여바지 소소타비 동바다 상생의 동바다 하고 동바도 라자도 줄래 겨와시나 라자 주제시 비자 돈도 용거레스 하고 동바에나 수다 동바 다가 송고 말했어. 어떤 라송나 자동 용거.
네, 사툰 니바.
자동 니바들.
Okay, so so now we're going to get into the actual vows. So risking my life, I will keep from the 14 root infractions, scorning and deriding the Lama. So this was, in order to receive these vows, we have to have a teacher. So the first is scorning and deriding the Lama. The second is despising the precepts. So here, precepts speak, referring to the individual liberation vows, the various vows of the Bodhisattva, and so forth. So any vows or commitments, pledges, or advices. So here, precepts are referring to any among the commitments or pledges or vows.
다 손바 대변라 맨라 준주비 사이도 말베. 그래서 안데 말베. 하게 원슈 슈바 이나 안에 하게 빈자레스 빈장아서.
레서.
가서
도제 빈자. 레서.
하게 라마지 군일 당아도 정원을 저 군일 아무 쉬거로 가서 그 도지 빈에 되어서. 어떤 준주 제바이나 도지 빈라 준주 제비 자유 동화 용거레스. 동바여나 동바 맨날 용 말했을
So the next is speaking fault of Vajra brothers and sisters. So here, this is there is only an infraction, again, if one has the vow itself. So Rinpoche keeps emphasizing that. You have to have the vow to break the vow. But here, speaking fault of Vajra brothers and sisters, many of us have received initiations from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So there's a common teacher that we have. So this is what the meaning of Vajra, brothers and sisters, is. It's a family that we've all and Rinpoche gave the example that we've all received. Many of us have received initiations from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So that's what's meant by it. The same initiator in the gross sense. So the same initiator. Has given each of us initiation, so therefore we're Vajra brothers and sisters.
당 아주 senji 정으로 뭐들 원양도 주여바이나 안 원가로 정으로 뭐들 두고 원의 주여바이나 안 참말로 도지뷰스 지진 전주시바이나 빌라 전주비 사동도 용거레스.
Rinpoche, 냠두 강에서 the Dukhor Wang Mambo Yure, Indiana Yure, Washington Yure, the nga Indiana Chinsong, Khensur Washington Chinsong, Natsu the
제가요 맞았나.
Chipa.
정원은 뭐 가지고 와시는 주인한테 가시는 데로.
Dutsu Chipa Keo. Okay, Tuchina.
정원은 뭐 두고 주인에.
Lesso.
강가 두고 주인나 도지 뷰레스.
Lesso.
전주시 나오.
Lesso.
천지 장르스 천지. 라마 지바레스.
Lesso. So this is I just wanted to clarify something because I wasn't clear. So His Holiness the Dalai Lama has given many of us initiation. So my question to Rinpoche, which I'll include in the translation, is this specific to the initiation? So if someone received an initiation in Washington and someone else received an initiation in Indiana, of Kalachakra, for instance, does that make them Vajra brothers and sisters? Does it have to be at the same initiation at the same time? And Rinpoche's answer is no. It's the same initiation from the same Lama, so that makes it so that they are Vajra brothers and sisters. So that was what I was clarifying, so I translated it properly. So if it's the same Lama in initiation, then it makes for Vajra brothers and sisters. Then a Lama, the Khensur Chenrezig wang yu nga dukor wang yu yene Lama chipa dorje pinja. Wang kaka yene the Lama chipa?
다 원나게 라마 뭐여로 다 라마 뭐다 정원을 천잡으로 다
Leso.
원나게 라마 젠다 속에 했더니 젠달래 원 도요나 하고도 도요나 안 도마요나 안 어때 그걸 전주비 자동 로마 나편을 전주지나 그걸 전주비 자동 중으로
Yene hwa kaka keo mare.
제말
Okay, I was asking if it was a different deity that was the initiation. I just want to be clear, if it's a different deity, if it's the same teacher. Rinpoche said Dalai Lama is not the only teacher. There are many teachers who are Vajra masters that this would categorically fall under. But I asked if it mattered if it was different deities for that qualification, and it does not. So it's the same Lama giving an initiation.
나 아마라가 나 살던 온고가 몸도 온고가 라마 몸도 what 라마 응네 온고여 봐이나 하고도 뭐 토여 봐이나 what it 냥도 저작근가로 뷰레스 준제지나 되주면은 제주에 사동도 용으로
So there are many lamas in the United States who take initiations, because there are many people in the United States who like taking initiations. So if the Lama is a real Lama and truly gives a true tantric vow, and the student is a qualified vessel and receives that true tantric vow, then all the students of that teacher who received it in that way, the student receiving the vow and the teacher real giving the vow, are Vajra brothers and sisters.
라마 온고 가시는 롱을 온고 되지르 로다 온고가 뭐 되지르 로다
And then there are many wrong views, those who wish for initiation who have wrong views. Wrong guken luta. Those who want initiations who have wrong views. We have to look very carefully and analyze.
하고 돈 벌어야지. 아니 세제지 콜 도와드잖아. 콜 도와 마주나 섬 상을제소나.
Leso.
아니 샴바봉 사이 동안 용거래서.
Leso.
세제 참아 도와드잖아. 하베 샴바고 그러와. 세제지 도와드잖아. 샴바 상을제소나.
Leso.
아니 가자 샴바봉 사이 동안
Leso. The next is abandoning love. So here, abandoning love, in the great vehicle, we wish for all sentient beings to have happiness and the causes of happiness. If we were to wish that one sentient being not be happy at that moment that we have that wish, because we're aspiring to have all sentient beings be happy, if we wish that one isn't, then we break this vow if we have the vow. So abandoning love means that if we abandon the wish for one sentient being to have happiness, then at that point we break this vow. That's the fourth. Musen kuna, musen juice, musen alea. Okay, yes, musen kuna. The next is giving up the aspirational and practical altruistic intentions. So here this is saying, I no longer can work to become a Buddha for the sake of a sentient being. So no longer having this aspiration to become a Buddha. So once one says I no longer have this aspiration, then this root vow is broken if one has the vow. Drupa.
Drupa Mame Sandu Satung to attain by the Tebason Karun to be Tebason Karun to be Netuji Teba Raja Teba Tijing Teba Karun to be Kakan Wala, the Sanji Sumayi no she kobata na
didn't state.
ale Rajeng Druta Lam Happy Druta Happy Sai don't want the Rendwa Trubate.
This Sanjay Kayoma.
And you said no, don't chula me said no don't hagi chew to the Abuma's Lovina, what the Sai doing Baruda.
The next, deriding the doctrines of sutra and mantra, and in the other text Rinpoche was reading, it said deriding the doctrines of the three vehicles. So it's just two yogic texts. I'm just giving both translations. The three vehicles, hearers, solitary realizer, and bodhisattva vehicle. And in here it says deriding the doctrines of sutra and mantra, stating that there is some problem or contradiction, or Buddha didn't state that. So once one abandons one of those doctrines or derides them in some way, then the fault or infraction has been created. That's Rinpoche.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a short break. It's 4 o'clock. Okay, thank you.
Okay. What that don't do about my miss out of Tatung. My miss out of Tatung to Connecticut and this one do. One tenny that Dembe, Nero to my JB, Gonzalas, then do she be, high then you last will be, Haji San Gan Draba, Harabiton Guana, Mame Sama, Mami Bala, someone that was. That one tenny that Dembe, then Nero to my JB. And the Kaza de la Tetabi Kaza in Bahakone, and the Langhage, Shaju Judan Kasugre, Teji Semegan and Jot and the Lasuna, Mamma Sandu Tatun Ris. Hagatumba Yona, Duma Men.
Next, deriding, proclaiming the secret to the unripened. So here, this is teaching the secrets of the Tantrayana to those who are not proper or fit vessels. So here, if one has this vow and does so, it's inappropriate. So here, explaining the different classes of Tantra, of action performance yoga and highest yogic Tantra, and the practices contained therein of the yoga with and without signs or generation and completion stage practices. So defining them with the specific details to those who are unfit vessels is inappropriate and causes a transgression if one has the Tantric vow. That's so.
Mame Sandu Rang Pompones, Mame Sandu Rang Pompones, Rang Pompo Hemesh from the Sai to Machedo, Jebate, Rang Pomponga, Sanjinga Rajito, Gombashila, Dungay, Matan and de Sanjisu, Gomoron she, Hebans, Rang Pompo Gubashibi, Sambes. Sejaba Suju Gubashena, Pombola Hemish with Satunsa. Tangazu Pomonga de Sanji Guna Mauba and Azu Tishiba Ringachaya, what in the Yimbaravata, what in the Gun Chuyo Maris, and Azu Lu to the Masambaris, Sanji Gun Candice Yuayo Maris. And then Susu Pombo de la Nubachina, and Kalamazat and Jena Pombo Gunu Road, Rang Pombo Nebisa, you want dress.
Masamba Sena? Matsampa, Serna.
Ta Pomanga Sanji Guna, Pomanga Masamba is Masan Pombo.
Oh, not.
What the Santana. And the Susu Pombo de Ma Guyag Tandala and Kalamazana Pombo Gunuro.
Lesso.
Chubichanuro. E Kadukam ever in the what the Legina Rang Pombo Nebisa you don't want is that.
Lesso. Despising my own aggregates. So here, because our own aggregates in the future will be transformed into the pure 5 Buddha families, we have to take care of our aggregates and imagine or familiarize ourselves in such a way that we abandon the ordinary appearance of them as being contaminated and see them as uncontaminated. Therefore, we have to care for our aggregates. We have to make sure that we take care of ourselves. We have to eat very well and drink good things. We have to do this so that we can be healthy. If we're not healthy and we don't eat and we become very fragile and frail and our color and shape becomes off because of this, then this is not taking care of ourselves. This is not taking care of our aggregates. So despising my own aggregates is causing some sort of suffering to be incurred, or causing the aggregates to have some sort of suffering. So this is what despising my own aggregates is. And Rinpoche gave the example of not eating and so forth, because these aggregates will transform into Buddhas, so we have to take care of them.
다들 동반이 보면 자유 동화 고바들베. 동반이 리마치네. 안 가서 아예 노예에서나 로다 땡도 시다마스 담보데 고블로도 마페 공게 시다마스게 시신도 상지 소마레스 로다 땡고레스 봄 녀체 제동 싫어지부터 로다 땡고레스 상지 가마레스 로고 말베 뭐 하가 동바 여행지게 된 제소나 안네 돈이 뭐 자동데 이사
The next is abandoning emptiness. Previously, the Great Exposition School felt that the pronouncements of the perfection vehicle of Nagarjuna to be wrong view. In this perfection of wisdom sutras, we find the 100,000 verse, 20,000 verse, 8,000 verse, and then the condensed perfection of wisdom sutra. And in the most condensed, we find the sutra of the heart of transcendent knowledge, and many negations that are made in it. There's no eye, there's no ear, there's no nose, no tongue. Earlier, the Great Exposition, proponents of the Great Exposition School felt that these were perfection vehicle teachings were not teachings of the Buddha. They were wrong view, they taught nihilism. So here, the teachings are the lack of true establishment of phenomena. The teachings are on emptiness. So believing that these are not pronouncements of the Buddha, that these teachings of the perfection of wisdom on emptiness, believing they are not valid teachings falls categorically under abandoning emptiness. So yeah, that's all the information.
안에 가서 팀에 봐서게 되는 령아 이슈 녀셔도 가서 되는 송거스 안에 상주 선바설 가자 고바 종소나 안에 상주 선부터 도버절 마상바 쉬어바다 수바다 와트설 메시요레스 메시 만난 동동자도 말베 와트서게 만난 동동 상주 선바로 안에 그 만나버세요. 든 투모주 보이서로 미시여들다. 상주에서 도바도바들 글론이나요. 마상바셔나 안에 마상바셔나 무서나 미시여레스.
Lesso bridge.
안은 하거는 봐요나. 하거는 봐요나. 안에 라마를 해 봐. 땡바시리긴 어든게 네 코드야게 천이 상황이나 예지 메지 세고스. 하게 뭐여고도 되고스. 마데나 하게 도바요 견들에 아니 해봐용 거였어. 어제 아니 말아래봐도 뭐버세고 돼. 근데 도진세바 조송세바다 라겐아이 시슈인스. 라로 마세나 차통도 그래스. 라로 차리 뭐시라레스. 그 도진세바 조송세버스. 아 도진세바 조송세네 라로 차리 뭐 차버스. 어떤 라로 시슈레스.
Dorje Zimba.
Dorje
Zimba made Jusum Sesum.
Jusum Sen Ta, the Raluk the Laugorta, Moscow Messena Seton Dores. Majusum Macasena Kutserin Doroter, Raluk Chechures, Bashe.
So then, in the different vehicles, there are different forms of ethics. In the lesser vehicle, or the Hinayana vehicle, we find a very specific behaviors where one guards the body, speech, and mind, and the activities of the body, speech, and mind very thoroughly. So they're very guarded relative to those ethics and without any kind of permission to deviate from those ethical behaviors. In the Bodhisattva vehicle, if motivated by bodhicitta, there is a need to, even if one is a fully ordained monk, for instance, engage in intercourse. It's permitted if there's a specific reason. If there isn't, then it becomes an infraction like it would normally be. There's also the example of engaging in the Shanchu Semba Suchupa.
Shanchu Semba Tuba Tole, Glon Yinaya, Madame Shuna, Missy Yoris, Masuna, Missy Yoris,
Shuchupa,
Missy Yoris, Gajat, Tamba, the Sijil Penguyana,
So if it is truly beneficial to sentient beings, then it's even permitted to engage in killing in the bodhisattva vehicle. But it has to be truly motivated. Rinpoche keeps stressing it has to be the truth that it will be of benefit to sentient beings. So there has to be that awareness that a bodhisattva would have. So this bodhisattva ethics is slightly different, and there are cases where permission is given to, even for a fully ordained monk, as Rinpoche reiterated, to engage in, break the vow of celibacy and engage in intercourse. So in the bodhisattva yana. In the tantrayana, there's even more flexibility relative to one's behavior, as long as it's motivated by great purpose and great need. So again, there are instances of using miraculous powers for various reasons that would seem negative, or one can engage in a tantric execution or killing. And in this case, this is specifically I hope I'm not mistranslating any of this, but this is specifically has to be motivated by great purpose. We find in the story of Milarepa where he was not motivated by this great purpose, and he engaged in this killing by using black magic and killed villages of people. And this is misuse of those powers that can be gained through certain practices. So in the tantric tradition, one can gain these kinds of miraculous powers, but cannot misuse them. So the different ethics are, we find different ethics and different behaviors permitted as we go through the different vehicles, but there always is great purpose when we look at the bodhisattva vehicle and engaging in a seemingly negative act, or the tantrayana vehicle where one is seemingly engaging in a negative act. And then Rinpoche also gave the example of Ralotsawa and Dorje Dzimba, and I don't know the story very well, and I'm sorry I'm not going to be able to give you the full context, but Dorje Dzimba killed 13 people. The 13 people. The Dorje Dzimba made Jusum say so. The Ralotsawa. Lesso. Shirubul Haris, Yedongul Ragu, Ralul Katan, and the Ralu go to the day. Ralo Consusason, Dorje Dzimba. Dorje Dzimba, that's it, Amando de Lazo, Dorje Zimbaro, Hang Dubai against Andrew to save. So then Ralo Tsawa was a propagator of the Yamantaka tradition, and at the time there were only the practices of Guya Samaja and so forth from Marpa the translator's tradition. So there were many who felt that the Yamantaka tradition were a wrong view and were a non-Buddhist tantra, or a non-Buddhist tantra, because the deity had horns on its head, and they said that it was a spirit of some sort, a non-Buddhist deity. So this practitioner, Ralo Tsawa, engaged in the ordering of killing, but there was great purpose in propagate the specific tantra that helped many beings. So this isn't for ordinary individuals to engage in. This is for those who possess special realizations due to their yana, to their vehicle, relative to their yana or vehicle.
한국 투자는 세고야게 가자가 레주로 어두서도 조부제나는 한국 동바연의 자동용 그랬어 노젠 자우 때문에 자동 동바녀고 노젠 자우 때에서 시스 오래가 놀도 동바녀고 노젠 자우 때 노젠에서 도바젠에서 다 한국 투자는 세고야게 가자주로 어두서도 조부제나 한국 동바연나 노젠 자우 때문에 자유 동화용 그랬어.
Something in the sixth session about using this magical, black magic, and something about if one then Toboshana becomes friends. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to translate this accurately. Sama donwa kagi donba.
뒤로 라면에 주던도 동반예부 도전 자우된스 도전 자우된스 아도데 난 하고 토전 세고야 줘로 와도서도 주부지네 라마를 묘하게 템바시디 레전드 요마레 지왕하시 요마르 생각도서 주부지소나 주부제나 안는 하고 동반이나 자유 동화용 그래서 도전 자우된스 어떤 말을
The next vow is relying on a poisonous, all came together, I apologize, relying on a poisonous friend. So here, a poisonous friend refers to someone who is stating that there is no truth to these practices. There is no Four Noble Truths. There is no, it's a friend who teaches or speaks of wrong view to you or engages in wrong view. So here relying on a poisonous friend is the, I forget what number we're on, but the next root tantric vow. So not to rely upon poisonous friends being those who would dissuade you from the tantric path. But it doesn't mean that one should discard them, because we have to have love for all sentient beings. So even if this person is a poisonous person, we don't discard them or not care for them. We just don't rely on them as a friend. We don't because of their views. So this is the not to rely on poisonous friend. And once Rinpoche, this is what it was. And once we become friends with such a person, if one has the vow, at that point where the friendship is formed, the vow is broken. So if once one forms this friendship with a poisonous friend, then this root vow is broken. Okay, that was it, incomplete. I apologize.
다 동반님부 도전 자우된 따와마렘 사유 동화도 말해 따와마렘 사유 동화도 가르쳐서나 온고와 천이 차유군에 하지 동바 투셔를 랑기 안에 네바당 참바 다음에 자라거로 당 하게 동바 투사나 안에 랑기 네바당 참비 다음에 참공도나 참공고래 안에 라바고나 어디 네마타바 공고르스 마구나 다마렘 사유 동화용 그래서 다마렘 사유 동화 다와 다음에 차라 가자가 되면 또 비타와 생산부 돈이 또 비타와 오마부 돈이 또 비타와 오마 단주의 돈이 어디서 그걸로 소수 내바 가려나 공고 냐마타바 공고를 전고 그래서 하고 동바에는 마데나 다마렘 사유 동화용 그래서
So the next is not recollecting the view, and then there are the coarse and subtle views that could be specific here, and specific to the practitioner. Whatever view the practitioner every day engages in analysis of, for instance, the view of a great exposition school, the view of the Sautrantika school, the view of the mind-only school, the view of the middle way school, autonomy, and then ultimately the view of the middle way consequence school. So when one stops recollecting the view, whatever the view is relative to his or her scope of analysis, then the root, if one has the root vows, then there is an infraction here. So there are the very subtle and then the coarse views of the coarse and subtle nature of person. So whatever the view that one practices is, if one stops recollecting it or familiarizing oneself with it, then this is an abandonment and a infraction.
And then how get to Dal Gabayokin, how Tebayokin, what in the 20 years to Sole, how to Nation Choyo Mardas, to Lutaris, Pentu Maris, what in the Shene, could Hal Tebajuro, Tebat Mabaresuna, they don't send you beside you to Maris.
Tene, the Nga, the Luta Yimba Kona, the Nyentu Yapio Mari Ranche.
That Duja then Hal Tebayobachi.
Okay, two channels.
Duja Maji the Hal Tebayobachi, Tebayokenjilla, and Hag Domayokenji, to the Chuyamada, Hard Lutar, the same could Teba Lano, they don't send you beside you to one notice.
The next, uprooting the attitude of one with faith. Here, if someone has faith in the Tantrayana and has likes it, an affinity for the Tantrayana, if we start to dissuade them by saying, "Oh, this isn't Dharma, this is wrong view, you shouldn't engage in this practice," when their attitude is uprooted or their liking of the Tantrayana is uprooted, then if one has the vow, then one creates this root infraction. So uprooting the attitude of one with faith is one who likes or has faith in the Tantrayana. If one dissuades them and their faith is uprooted, then there's an infraction. Dansi.
초지 콜롱아주 초벼서도 초벼는 아주 제바 장마가 초벼바 있나 초 말이지 바이 때문에스 제바도 보면 그냥도 초벼바 있나 초레스 초스게데 제메다 그냥도 표벌로 초라 그래스 포장마가 초벼바 있나 어들 바이 때문에 그러마도 초 말이스 초안 아주 초아버리 말바 초아버리 only man 초아버리 초 말했을 때 바이드모 네 와민도 그 초자들 초배가 있나 초라고 그랬어 초지 콜롱아 바이드모 밤이 너무 주네 셰바진스 밤이시 다 제면 냥도 진 초배야 제바 냥도 진 초배야 건강 냥도 진 초배야 들어 주네 셰바진 최진도 최당 퇴바 마지비체 샹알라 수비 당치 제 최진도 템바나 마자와다 이메시바 수지 삼비 다도 말해봐 나기 공부 코나 또 저와 인지 대외나 시도제 지리다 이 가사 유주 차바다보 베메지 릴라 편주에는 그러면 어디 추드르베
Jusumba the dansi the sok matsa seiring ryobo matsa the
또마데 선생님 단치 메테 세야 돼 단치 메테 비싸요 동안 단치 메테 비싸요 동안도 간데서 난데레스 단치 하게 단치 메테 비싸요 동안도 쇼스나 초지 콜롱 밤이 또 뭐서 초지 콜로스나 제바도 보면 건강량도 초네 초배야 되지
오케이
바이 도모스나 제바 장바가 초배야 잡아 장바가 초배야 밤이 도모스나 제매 장바가 초배야 균의 쉐바지 최당 최당 팀바 마제 바사 바이 도메인한다 바미 도메인한다 투베바이나 벤하가 버찬 시바 나지 제고레스 데 마지 비츠세 샹알라 소비 단치기제 샹알라 소바 단치기제 취지 때바나 안은 나셔 놀레 샹알 나부치 샤바랑기샤 따이샤 치샤 어든데 뭐 나셔 놀로 산다고 말베 또 투버다스다 어떤 산다구나 대통화도 요노고 말해.
So the next is not observing the pledges. So the various pledges that are contained within the Tantrayana, also the pledges of the assemblage of the Tsok offering, for instance. At the Tsok offering, not having both men and women, not permitting both men and women to engage in the practices. So only allowing monks, for instance, to attend Guru Puja or Tsok offering. This is an example within the not observing the pledges. So all the pledges within the Tantrayana, but another example is, for instance, at a Tsok offering, not allowing male, having either only male or female, not allowing both male and female to attend, for not taking in the secret substances of the long amrita, the long life nectar, or the transformed flesh or meats. And the meat in the tantric tradition, we find Lambuche Sha,
Mi Shatan, Tai Shatan, Chi Shatan, what is a Gayoro, the gun, two button, Chimba, Yandul, Tomba Jean, and then Mambar, and the Tisuka Dusus June, Oma, and the Halbia, Chobambiero. What does God Masan as a Karji was two bodies. Go generally Gramatu, Teneguayo Maris, does the Tibetan Labi Shata to Chuma, Sound Nashan the Ajuris, Tansi to Matebaina, Tansi Matebisa, you don't want to.
So this is something that we should always be familiar with. This isn't something that we necessarily need this bell and vajra and mudra to accomplish. These are something that we have inner pledges that we should care for. So going back to the not observing the pledges, so seeing the various meats and so forth, there's different descriptions of elephant meat and tiger, different meats, seeing them as contaminated and seeing them as dirty in some way. If one does this, then this categorically falls under not observing the pledges, because one is seeing these things as transformed pure objects. So through from emptiness, these objects arise after we state the three syllables Om Ah Hum 3 times into pure substances so they're transformed into pure tantric substances. So seeing them as dirty or something in that way or contaminated would also fall under an infraction of not observing the pledges. So yeah, this says. I just want to make sure I have everything.
Honsa de Tangamba down, Rungaba Mabazu, Duzu Tobashi, the Yakusha of the Duzu Juars, Monji Mobashi Watch, Mongo Mobuja, what and the sun down the Lalbia, so she what Hangatan Simborota. The Tuba of Tenju Machu Mars, does the Tibetan Karaguchi was, Shajat and Chu, Santan Diggers, the Rasona, Tansi met them beside one of the Yungres, to Sutan were in Hangatan cities.
So here, we're maintaining the internal practices and relation to the secret substances and so forth. So we don't need to have this outer practice where we're making all these mudras and we have our bell and our dorje and performing. We need to have an inner practice that actually observes the pledges. So we are taking these substances, and I'm going to miss a couple of words in this, and I apologize. We take these substances and we imagine that through the syllables of Om Ah Hum, they are inflamed and then transform from those syllables into a pure substances through this recitation of Om Ah Hum. So we imagine that these objects are transformed, and then we offer them out to the deities and then back to ourselves. So these are all practices and pledges that are within the tantric systems. Not observing any of these practices of the outer offering and inner offering and so forth transgresses this vow if one has one. I apologize if I missed anything.
What that judge about the Pemel maybe Satung to Marva. Pemem Haba. Pemel, the judge in the Sayutuan is judge about Marva. Tansi Meden Pemem Haba there. Satung judge Sudan Dutu. Pemel Hena Sayutuan is Pemel. Nicheme Dujar is Lazuna, Satung is. What the Pemel maybe Sayutuan to Kanaja Ursana, the Legadua.
So the last is deriding women. So in any way that we speak negatively about a woman causes us to transgress this vow. So any negative speech about a woman in just general causes this transgression.
June member home, Bemejiri, Yuji Che, Sheba Tabo, Bemejiri la, June Mena, Bemela Mebisai once, Bemena Lula, Doji Pamela Suba, the Juba Moviores, what the Sul Juna, Sayutuan Yungres. And Cheme read your maridas, what the Laju Maris, Bemek read Yabu Maris. Tuzlana, Hagasayutuan Ungres. Chebagri Apamena, your Marcelana, Sayutuan Lagumudus, the Meg read the Abuyabas Loduna, Sayutuan Ungres. The Meg read your Marcelana, Chemen Alula, Dujipami, Juba to Jami, Juba Mobile, what the Sultan.
So if in any way we disparage women or speak badly of them, whether they are Vajra women or worldly, then we create this negative infraction. So if we speak in any way negatively about the women's lineage of women, then this becomes an infraction. Because Dorje Palmo has many emanations, and if we disparage women in general, then this becomes a gross infraction. So this is the 14th negativity, not deriding women.
What the Taton judges, what the Marbeta, you don't judge the what to was.
So these are the 14 root tantric vows, and we need to understand them.
To Susan on the page of it, and the San Matava, you know what the Sayutuan when you're not debate page of it, Sayutuan Mayuna, then Dabuna Debayuruda.
So if we think about these, it would be great benefit, because if we have the vow and we break it, then it's of negativity. But if we don't have the vow and we just have the facsimile of it, then it's also accumulating misdeeds. So we need to know what these vows are.
What that I don't judge it, what the Marbeta, you don't hang it on Balena, you don't judge it, what the Marbeta.
So these are the 14. When we look at receiving tantric vows, these are the 14 root tantric vows that we receive.
Lama Nyeme, Laja Judy, Pula Junjun, Rola Shambapon, Mami Sandu Rang Bombani, Bombani, Dujin Zauden, Tawa Marin, Tansi Mete, Bemem, what the Satung Judge, what the Maron has to Tindu Lamin and you.
Risking my life, I will keep from the 14 root infractions, scorning and deriding the Lama, despising the precepts, speaking fault of Vajra brothers and sisters, abandoning love, giving up aspirational and practical altruistic intention, deriding the doctrines of sutra and mantra, proclaiming the secret to the unripened, despising my own aggregates, abandoning emptiness, relying on a poisonous friend, not recollecting the view and uprooting the attitude of one with faith, not observing the pledges, and deriding women. These are the 14 root tantric vows. So you see, there's a lot of trouble if we say that women are no good. In Tantra, the woman is of great importance. The woman is of great importance in Tantrayana. We make prostrations to women. Who keeps calling you? The Rinpoche.
Yeah.
The Tuji Rinpoche. The Zanima Ngama. Nge Trusung. Then the Wang Ji that's Yanja Chiralang. Gangisena the Nge Trusung Ngama. Then Nge Sama La Tugudu. The Pongwang Garidagadu. Then the Sangwang Garidagadu.
Wang Luji Deba.
Less so.
Luji Deba Dagare. Tamen Haji. Wang Gangi Chujun Kuale. Tamen Haji Tamarabus. Tamarabah.
Less so.
Some you should use in Yawa and Gane Lon House.
Less so.
Someone take Nagi Deba.
Less so.
Gane Lon House.
Less so.
Mazu. Oh, the house,
Less so.
Never to kill him.
Less so. Then Shira.
Some you should use in Yawa and Gane Lon House. Kaza. Each guy judge either you say is in Tempashus. Tangasu Karsure. The water marble dawa.
Less so.
Tangasu Masambashova in the Dawa Yungrota. The water Tony Tuzuna. And then Shirashi wants that in
the they were
Communion, Doa Yungro.
Less so.
The what Tony Hasuna, Sigu initiation.
Less so. Then je pas si
Jeba Timarota.
Less so.
Sonju, Ruby Sonju, the Malu Sonju, those is Lane, Duja Gosuna, Silla then the Gosuna,
So last week, again, we went through the 4 initiations, and I asked Rinpoche to just go over them one more time so that I could clarify them in a pure way. So Rinpoche has just given a synopsis of the 4 initiations and the practices and what they purify. There are certain things left out from last week, so I will just make sure that there's a complete transmission because it was already been taught last week, and I gave up. As if he were here, he saw I just really wanted to be prepared to do it properly. So now I'm going to make sure that the entire explanation is given. The Vaz initiation is the first of the initiations, and it's the initiation relative to the generation stage in highest yoga tantra. It purifies all bodily defilements, and it later becomes what destroys the birth. This transforms the 6 realms into the pure 6 realms, and then causes the emanation body to be causes the emanation body. So it purifies all the bodily defilements in the Vaz initiation and the stains of hatred. This is the Vaz initiation, what takes place. The next initiation is the secret empowerment. The secret empowerment transforms the intermediate state and transforms one into the enjoyment body. It is the union of the red and white bodhicitta that the student tastes. And then the red and white bodhicitta, the drops, if you will, the union of the drops created by the male and female in union. This union of the drops is tasted by the disciple, and then the drops from the mouth down to the throat area and transforms all of the wind and the speech into the letters of Om, Ah, Hum. So then it transforms all verbal stains and allows one to accomplish the illusory body and a predisposition for the enjoyment body. So this drop then transforms all wind and all speech into that of Om Ah Hum. And when this drop descends to the throat chakra, there's an experience of bliss, and that's the bliss of the union of bliss and emptiness. So this is the happiness of the union of bliss and emptiness. The third initiation is the knowledge wisdom initiation, where that one enters in union with consort, and this empowers one to meditate on the clear light and purifies all the mental stains. The white bodhicitta descends from the crown to the throat, where there's an arisal of joy, and descends to the heart, where there's supreme joy, descends to the navel, where there's extraordinary joy, and descends to the genitals, where there's a spontaneous joy, ascertaining the nature of emptiness. So all of these joys are a union of bliss and emptiness. So all of these joys are created relative to that. And then the word initiation purifies all of the stains completely of the body, speech, and mind. And this is the word, the explanation of the word, the union of the two truths, the understanding of the meaning of the ultimate clear light and the conventional illusory body, and the inseparable ultimate bodhicitta. So these are the four initiations, and how they purify and what they purify. And I just wanted to make sure that this information was properly translated, because Rinpoche gave all of the dissensions, explanations of the dissension of the drops last week, and I was unable to translate it. So that is the explanation to the best of my ability of what Rinpoche taught last week. And he also emphasized the importance that this is in a tantric context, and this is in no way, in Tantra one abandons ordinary appearances completely, and this is mutually exclusive with a sexual act that we would normally think of. This is in a tantric context for highly realized beings, and is not a practice for ordinary beings. If one engages in it, and there isn't a retraction of the drops, a retraction of the seminal fluid, then their vow is broken at that moment. So this is not an ordinary experience of bliss, of orgasm. There's actually a retraction of drops that takes place that causes this bliss, which is the union of bliss and emptiness. I'm happy now with the translation from last week, and I'm very sorry. I don't understand this information very well, but you are all new Buddhists, so I want to give what I can.
Yeah.
Dene Samadhu.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Again, Rinpoche, Sheda Sobudu, Chanankadran Chempure. So we'll do the concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure land. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Lobsang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri, and likewise Samantabhadra as well, with whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the three times. I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All-powerful Avalokiteshvara Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wandak, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, the spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Tuji Rinpoche Gutsi Shapi Denona. Tu Chena.